A few days ago, there was a report published in the UK by the Environmental Audit Committee, and it was talking about the spread of invasive non-native species into the UK. I know a lot of people pointed out how ironic it was that MPs were asking for 1 million volunteers to essentially protect our borders, to protect the environment. Of course, the irony is that we are importing 1 million people every 3 years. And that is fundamentally changing our nation. So if it's so important to protect our environment and our countryside, our natural species, then why aren't we protecting our borders? Why are we importing 1 million people every 3 years? Why is our environment and our countryside so important when our people aren't? And there's also the point that if we are importing 1 million people net every 3 years, that's, by the way, the size of our second city, Birmingham. If we're doing that, well, won't we have to build infrastructure to support that? Won't we have to build the roads, schools, hospitals, shopping facilities, etc. to support that every 3 years? And if we're going to do that, apart from the cost of that, the financial cost, where are those new cities going to be built every 3 years? It inevitably encroaches on the environment. It inevitably encroaches on the countryside. That alone is going to change the countryside. That alone is going to threaten the environment. So it seems to me to be completely disconnected thinking. You cannot protect the environment, you cannot protect the countryside if at the same time you're going to import that number of people. Britain is already overcrowded. I think it's twice as overcrowded as Germany and 3 times as overcrowded as France. There seems to be a lack of joined up thinking within British politics. It's often said that you can't have open borders and welfare. Well, you can't have a protected environment and open borders. In both cases, our politicians are essentially trying to do everything. Now, I don't know whether they're going to get 1 million volunteers. They probably are. There probably are going to be 1 million people that will actually want to protect the English countryside because it is worth protecting. But it's futile while we continue to bring in people that essentially replace the indigenous population. What is the difference between bringing in species of plants and animals and assorted creatures that are different to what we have? What is the complaint? Isn't that enriching our environment? If we're told that 1 million immigrants every 3 years enriches our country, then why isn't the Asian hornet enriching our countryside? Why isn't hogweed enriching our countryside? Well, we don't say that because what we're saying is it damages our countryside, it damages our environment, and we'd quite like our environment and our countryside to stay as it is. Well, if that's so important to you, then why is it not important to protect the cultural landscape? It seems to me that it's easier to protect and to justify the protection of our countryside than it is to protect our culture and our people. And that fundamentally has to be wrong.